What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the BizDad recap episode on kids in business. So please take a listen to this episode. We've got a bunch of different advice for involving your kids in business, or maybe your kids starting their own business. I'm really excited to share this recap episode with you. If you hear something, jump back to the full episode. Listen to the full episode. Take some good notes, subscribe, all that stuff you're supposed to do to help this channel grow, to help get this information out to more people. Having your kids involved in your business is an amazing thing for both the kid and the business. So please listen intently, take notes, and let us know what we can do to support you in getting your kids involved in business. So please have a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and we'll see everybody in the new year. So your kids, what do your kids think you do in business, and like how much do you expose them to what you do, and what is their kind of understanding of what you do on the business side?
Yeah, it's interesting. At the age they are, it's hard for them to have like in-depth understanding necessarily, but I'm trying to teach that a little bit more. But it is funny sometimes when I said, I was talking to and they're like, oh, Adam's doing real estate, or Adam's in real estate. Also, sometimes like I want to ask them like, what does doing real estate mean? Anyway, but I've tried to teach them a little bit of lessons, not to get too far off track from that question. We've played like the cash flow for kids and things like that on some of the finance level and things. So we're starting to grasp a concept around like assets and liabilities and things of that nature. So I use that to relate some other things we do in the house with appliances or whatever, trying to teach them some of those baseline finance terminology and skills, if you will. I've taken them since we came back to the US, like down to Tulsa. So Tulsa is where a lot of our apartment communities are down there. And I've had the opportunity to take them down there and try to explain and talk to them about, hey, these are the people that we provide homes, or like we have like on-site maintenance and leasing and stuff. Like, here are the people that we provide a job to. It has some other like tangible things. So they're well aware that we acquire apartment complexes in real estate. They're well aware that I spend a lot of time talking to our like investors who invest with us. Yeah. But I would say up until this last year, it's been harder to get them to grasp like what it is with real estate and stuff. But now that I've had the opportunity for them to put eyes on, and so I think that starts to come across a little bit better. Yeah. But other than that, they know I spend a lot of time behind a computer screen.
That's my kids definitely understand that, between the computer screen and the cell phone screen. What do you have intentions later on to expose them a little bit more? And if you do, what are you hoping that looks like as they grow up?
Yeah, I'd love to get them more involved in the business, and not like in any way to push them down that road. If that's not the road that they want to go about, but mostly just to understand the power of real estate and the options that are available to them. A lot of people just don't know, I could be a part of acquiring an apartment complex or whatever kind of real estate is. Understand the pros and cons of things. And one example recently, so this was actually before I hired my assistant, but I think it's probably still important that I allow her to do it on occasion, is I was working on like a newsletter or an investor report or something, and I use ActiveCampaign and to send a file. And so I was working on something, my daughter walked by, and surprisingly, she was interested, right? Like, no problem, I had a computer or whatever. But what are you working on and stuff? And so I showed her how I created this and pulled pictures in and typed some stuff here. And she asked if she could help. And so like, yeah, sure. And so I kind of I was showing her how to use the ActiveCampaign software and, how to do different things. And she was really enjoying it. And I think that was cool for me, because a lot of times when they see us on the phone and all this kind of stuff, they're like, well, it's kind of boring. And so whenever she's excited about something else about it, it's an opportunity just to bring them in to the loop to see different aspects of it, if you will. And even like this, back in early summer, I was speaking at a conference, a 3-day conference down in Nashville, and the family went with me down there. And I didn't make the kids sit through 3 days of real estate presentations, but they did come in when I was speaking and stuff. And they also kind of stayed in the room. My wife and the kids stayed in the room for a couple more like motivational speakers, if you will, not necessarily real estate specific. But at one point in time, my son started to get a little antsy. My wife was going to take him. I asked my daughter, do you want to go or stay? She's like, no, I want to stay, And so that kind of made me a little warm inside. So things like that, the ActiveCampaign, like exposing them, like it's intentional for them to hear some of those motivational speakers and
Yeah, for sure.
see that there's some other stuff around the real estate other than the boring sitting behind the computer thing. So like I said, I don't want to push them into anything, but open up those opportunities. And I see when they do get excited about something to see how they could maybe, where they're a good fit or what they're interested in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for me, I'm a huge why guy, and I've trained my kids to ask why all the time as well. Like, why do you do this? Why do you do that? Why do you do this? So I've done what I can, and I know I could do better, but to show them the why behind why daddy sits behind this computer all the daggum time, right? And I've brought them to different properties that we own, talk to them about the work that we're doing and having that exposure so they understand that why. I need to do a better job of reminding them so that they can have that connection as to just what kind of impact we're able to have in the world and what we're doing. And same thing, similar, we've got ADPI, we've got our conference at the time of this recording next week. And by the time this comes out, it'll be already months ago. So it would have already been a very successful, exciting conference. But now next week, we've got our conference. I'm bringing the kids with. They get to go and see what the company's doing and how many people get to be impacted by what we're doing and hear the stories and be involved. And it excites me that I get to expose them to that sort of thing. And I just hope that I don't oversaturate them with some stuff and make them want to run away from it. Because I think we've all seen some things as kids that we run away from that we never want to have happen as adults. And then I don't want that to be the case here. So it's finding that balance. But also it's extremely important to me to make sure that they understand business and what we're doing. And again, I don't care if they follow this. I don't care if they join the military. I don't care if they, whatever it is they want to do, but I want them to be exposed to as much as I can.
And I think the balance is hard. Yeah, it's just like we were talking about earlier with our parents and the work and things like that. Especially when I was living in England, it was really difficult because I couldn't like physically take them to our properties or whatever.
Yeah.
So a lot of it is like just talking and trying to explain or whatever. But now that we're back here, and it still takes some effort. It's 3.5 hours to 3.5, 4 hours to a lot of our properties and stuff from where we live to Tulsa. And so it has to be planned out to go down there in about 3 weeks or so. They're going to go down there with me for another weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to plan that out to be able to take them or to go to conferences and things like that. But I think it's important for them to have that exposure, whether it's something that they take on and run with early on after school, and if not, maybe not. Maybe they, like you said, they go do something else. I think it'll be in the back of their minds, right? They'll always at least will then have exposed and know that it's an opportunity, and it might be a few years down the road, but I think it will be impactful. So we talked about business and things, but throughout we play the cash flow for kids, Robert Kiyosaki and different things. I'm just curious with your kids' ages and stuff like that, if you have any unique, one of the things like we did in our house while we were in England is sold the kid like a microwave and toaster and turned that into, we rented it out. And now that we're here, we're planning to start doing that with the laundry and things. Mm-hmm. Just if there's any kind of creatives or anyone else out there listening, when they hear this, if people have creative things that they have done for those kids, because I think it's important. There's different age appropriate stuff, but also as we've been talking about other things that different kids will learn differently too, whether that's through a book, through a game, through something real life going on. Yeah, whether it's you or others listening, I'm always interested in hearing what they did and how that worked. So something we can incorporate in our own household as well.
Yeah, for sure. So I think for me, I'm always trying to ask that same question. I started wanting to, I talk to the kids about money all the time. I talk to them about finances. I help them understand investing and what that actually means through conversation. And even if it's learning how to invest $20 that you earned by pulling weeds out in the front yard into something, and let's turn that into $35. Let's grow these things and show how it all works. But I think, honestly, the cash flow game is something that I really want to go buy because I've heard nothing but great things about playing that with your kids. Son, actually, we played Monopoly, and my oldest son kicked my butt with some Monopoly. I'm like, he's going to be a killer real estate investor apparently later on in life because he was crushing me in that game. But it was a lot of fun to play. But I don't know. I would love anybody that's listening again. Yeah, put it down in the comments. So there's one. I haven't looked through all of them yet, so don't take this as great advice. But there's a thing called the Tuttle Twins. They have various different. Actually, I got some books here. So they've got. I bought them for the homeschool stuff, but the food truck fiasco. So it talks about these kids creating this food truck and going through all the stuff and the messed up market. It talks about like different market stuff. So then we could talk about what's going on. And they're coming more from a libertarian, very free market type of aspect. And again, I haven't read all of these yet, but it's been good thus far being able to have these conversations about what this looks like and what kind of, what entrepreneurship looks like and what growing a business looks like. And this is why daddy does what he does. And but like the actual tactical stuff is a little bit different. I haven't I'm part of my homeschool this year is going to be to create what's the word I'm looking for, vending machine route, and try to get a couple of vending machines and teach them supply and demand through that. And I can help do some math through the spreadsheets and show them, hey, this is where our money comes and goes on the vending machine side of the house. And that's one thing
I know a couple of people that have probably young teenagers or something that are doing the vending machine thing. It seems to be a pretty solid option to teach some of those lessons with.
Yeah. I started off wanting to do houses, and then because I'm a real estate guy, so that's what in my brain. And then I heard about the vending machines through, I don't remember where I was, but somebody said something about vending machines. It's why that? I think a bag of Doritos would match my son's personality a whole lot better than an HVAC system. So I can adjust fire and look at that. So that's the route I've gone. But hopefully we have somebody the one or two people who can put some comments in for both of us to be able to look at. I've got a buddy of mine, Aaron Velke. I don't know if he still has it, but he had a financial education program for kids, specifically to teach kids about money and all of that. He tried to do it more in schools and try to get it as a borderline curriculum inside of schools. But I know that it was open to other people, but I don't even know, again, if he's still doing that or not. But yeah.
It's great. I think that a couple of the conferences I've been to recently and stuff, I know there's a couple of them that are almost starting like kids masterminds, if you will. And some of those are probably more appropriate, like in the a little bit teenage years, if you will. So my children are probably a little bit young for that, but I'm just always interested or open to ideas that people have to teach in different ways. Let's get them exposed to them, hopefully in a somewhat interesting way for them.
Yeah. Yep. We one person, I don't remember where I heard it, but it was one of those as far as teaching kids about the usefulness of money and how you could do it. Give them, hey, you guys know what we eat every week, and even for a 9-year-old like our kids, like here's $50. Go walk around the grocery store and see what you could buy for your $50 and understand that, what it takes. Hey, this is how we earn $50 and this is what you're spending. Understanding what the effort it was to be able to get the amount of groceries you have in your cart, just thinking about things a little bit differently. And if you buy 17 boxes of cereal, you already have $50 and now you don't have dinner. You only have breakfast. Granted, I can eat cereal all 3 meals of the day, don't get me wrong. But that was another thing somebody recently told me about that I wanted to implement as well. But just to get them thinking differently. What you get from your parents, from your kids, and the first thing you said was like budgets and saving money and
financial responsibility.
Yeah. Do your kids rather well? That's where you started at a young age, or is that something that it took a little while to grow into, or how did you start to expose them to budget? And I'm assuming it's add on to that is that's why you started doing the business side of it as well on your business. And when you left, is all of that going to go? Like, this is what I know is what I like to do. So I'm teaching it to my kids and I'm doing it myself.
In my own weekly budget that I would look at to see what were the expenses, what were the income, where are we lining up with all that type of stuff. And with the kids too, they knew I was very much into looking at statistics. I would look at my statistics once a week. So one of the responsibilities at that time, I think it was 8 or 10 years old, Summer, who's now 18, was doing was I would have my office staff write down certain key statistics that I needed, right? He would take those statistics and plot them into this program that I have, which would make a graph for me. So I can usually take a look at the graph of all these statistics. He got so good at doing it, he would recognize that, hey, this employee over here, they're not doing as well as they were before, or something's up over in this area because look, the statistics are off. And then we would see that, hey, either somebody's not calculating something right, or somebody's not doing their job properly. So I think he understood from a young age that these statistics mean something.
Yeah.
In and of itself, you can't run the company by looking at the statistics, but you do find key areas that something could be wrong. And that way you can look into that specific area.
Yeah, for sure.
And then he would get paid on a weekly basis. He would get paid for doing that. And then we would tell him, and I don't remember the exact dollar amount, but let's say it was $10. $10, but you can't have all 10 of it. You have to pretend that 2 of it doesn't exist, and you can only play or do something with the $8. The 2 is savings that you will never be able, not shouldn't say never, that will just sit there and we'll deposit that in the bank, and that'll be for a rainy day or for in the future. Did you like it? But that's what it was. It's like you have to set money aside for savings. He knew.
I never went into that, that's for sure. It took me a long time to learn the whole savings. Well done on teaching early. But did you expose your kids to that level of education that you were getting as well? And did they understand at all what it was that you were doing? I don't know.
They were too young. They were like, I only had my oldest, and he was probably not even 1 at the time. But over the next 5 years, they all got little bits and pieces, but it was the management training stuff that I was learning that wasn't really applicable to what they were infants. But as they got older, they would learn more and more. And then Neil, who's 15 now, I had him volunteer at my center. at my physical therapy place, which is outpatient orthopedic type of patients. So he would sit there and he would come in and I would tell him that you're going to volunteer. And we had other people that were doing the same job, but they were getting paid for it. He wasn't getting paid for it. Mm-hmm. And I told him what he's responsible to do and he would go ahead and do it. And then I noticed that he was just sitting around, just watching everybody. And I told him, listen, if I ever see you sitting around again, you're not, actually, was he getting paid? I might have paid him. I forgot what it was. That you're not going to make a penny. I don't pay people for sitting around. Like, you have to be moving. From that minute on, he never sat still. Other employees would come and complain, dude, you're making us look bad. You're making us look bad. Like, we won't stop. So he got it in him that he has to keep hustling. He has to keep moving, whether he's opening a door for somebody, whether he's cleaning up after a table. He was just making everybody else look bad. So I think he understood that's the way it works.
Kids in general, they really want to be useful. Anyway, just any human being, even whether they're a kid or not, like they want to be useful. I think our lack of desire to be useful comes because of our abuse throughout the years. It doesn't, because we all want to be useful in some way, shape, or form. That's one of the reasons I really want to include my kids a little bit more into business stuff and try to figure out how I can bring them in and give them a task and help them kind of work. And you're really helping the company, you're really helping the business, you're helping our family grow. And it's just trying to find the right ways to be able to do that. What was it that led you to making that decision to bring your kids in and expose them to that level of interaction inside of the business?
They were of age. Honestly, they were just old enough that they got it. And I said the earlier I expose them to working hard, the better. I think my mentality, to be honest with you, at that point wasn't for them to work smart. It was just, they need to learn how to work hard. Later, they can learn to work smart and to streamline the process and how to make it better and things like that. But at this age, just learn to work hard. I had a friend in high school that was a very intelligent guy. He would always say to me, Amit, you're going to be way more successful than me. And I said, how would you say that? I'm lazy. He would say he is lazy. He's lazy and he won't do certain things. And because of that, he's only going to go so far. And then years and years later, I met up with him and he's, you exactly what I told you. And I'm still lazy. And look at you, you're not lazy at all. I might have to work harder at something, but I will persevere, where he would just say, forget it. I don't even want to do it. So I'd rather get my sons to sit there and work hard, because if they can combine that with working smart, I think you're like unstoppable.
What advice would you give on including the kids in the business? What would you try them avoid? If you have certain things just in the business you definitely want your kids to avoid, and what things would you encourage dads to bring their kids in on?
They don't need to be the one who does the firing, but they need to know that people do get fired. And I used to tell my kids this, that I didn't fire that person. They fired themselves. I gave them plenty of opportunity to correct their behavior, correct their actions, and they chose not to do it. I don't really feel bad because I gave them those chances. So I think that's an important thing, because I think sometimes kids have an idea, and it might be from television, it might be from other things, that, hey, if you're firing somebody, you're taking away their livelihood. You're taking away their ability. And I sit there and I tell them they fired themselves, and maybe this job isn't right for them. They're going to find something that is right for them. So I think that explanation of a very simple thing that they can just take away with them, and not talking too much, and just let them marinate on that stuff. But they need to know that this is the reality of how things work. And I don't think there's anything that we shouldn't include them on. Obviously, HR stuff and things like that. But I think they need to know, like even a spreadsheet. This is a spreadsheet. We plug in numbers over here to get calculations so we understand things a little bit better. This is a pro forma, helps us predict things. Just very simple stuff. And as they get older, let them take part in some of these actions. It's work. And you always think that they have no interest and they're not learning anything, but you find out years later that, yeah, Dad, you used to do this with me and I know this and I know that because of it. You're like, where did this come from the whole time?
Have you included the kids into these new ventures now, or on this stuff?
They hear me on calls all the time. They hear me talking about real estate stuff all the time. And I had so as I'm in GoBundance, we're both in GoBundance. So my son, who's 15, I said, hey, somebody's putting together this thing for GoBundance for kids right around your age group. Do you want to maybe join? At least appear for the 2 Zoom calls that they go. Okay, Dad, fine. The first one, he missed it. I'm like, how did it go? He's, I got busy. I'm like, just tell me the truth. Because I forgot. I'm like, okay, that's fine. All right, try next time. So he went, Dad, it was boring. They talked about this. I hear you talking about this stuff all the time, so I already knew. I'm like, you're telling me you knew everything? He's like, yeah, I already knew what they were talking about. I already knew all that stuff. I'm like, fine, just go to one more. See what you get out of it. Goes to the next one. Same exact thing. I already know this stuff. They're not talking about anything new. Like, all right, you don't want to do it, then don't do it. So they hear me talking about stuff and apparently they're learning something, or they say they're learning something, but it's like one of those things, you can't shove this stuff down their throat. So they either want it or they don't want it.
Yeah,
that's the truth.
It's easy that the more you try to shove something down a kid's throat, the more they can walk away from it anyways, right? And you don't want that to be, you don't want to sting you for it.
My son has more interest than my daughter. My daughter had no interest in any of this stuff. Like I have to pick and choose my battles.
I'm in the same boat where my daughter's the youngest. She's only 6 months old right now, so we'll see how it all goes. I'm then curious to see as we grow up. I don't know what that looks like. It's very similar in ages of yours as far as the spread goes. It's about to be 9, about to be 5 in 6 months. So over 4 years, we were having a kid. I'm just got a bunch of thoughts going through my lane right now that don't really tie to this at all. But I'm also curious, looking at with an 8-year spread between my oldest and my youngest, like the world that they're growing up in is going to be so much different as well. Yeah. What am I going to be able to attest daughter to that I didn't think they exposed my son to? What am I exposing my son to? My daughter's not going to have any clue about. What a different world it's going to be in 8 years. But yeah, we'll see how it all goes.
You roll with it. Roll with it.
We can't be perfectly in balance. As entrepreneurs and those things, we stretch and we give a lot. I heard the analogy of a rubber band, right? So you have so much capacity, and there's times in your business is going to stretch that rubber band. And hopefully you have good mentors and feedback systems in your life that you don't break the rubber band.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's never like perfectly in balance, like sitting like a round rubber band. I'm going to stretch and I'm going to pull, but I also am cognizant of, hey, that has to retract at some point, and I need to stretch the rubber band this.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a constant flex. And that's what I do with my son. There are times he knows it's a busy season, or maybe it's a critical client opportunity or event going on that I've just got to dedicate time and focus.
Mm-hmm.
However, what I've done to air quote balance more is if that person comes up to me, is involve my son in the conversation, introduce him, and really teach him, hey, make good eye contact, ask them a question, beat the greet, say hi to them before they say hi to you. Mm-hmm. And in doing that, it changes the dynamic of the conversation to where they don't just feel like a fly on the wall.
Yeah.
The other thing is, if I get a phone call, if it's in the car, a lot of times he's been exposed to some amazing phone calls. He's through all kinds of negotiations to dealing with employee frustrations or issues, client issues or opportunities. So that part's great. It's the postmortem. I really break down conversations with him after and say, hey, you see how dad responded to that? What do you think about that? Would you have responded like that? Or what other questions? Or what did you think about that person? Did you see how they came in and their attitude was one way and maybe they were really anxious? But instead of me feeding into that anxiety, we ask calming questions. Yeah. My son is more on the shyer end, although now he's been playing football and he's come way out of his shell. It's awesome. He's so pensive. He's thinking about everything. And what I found is I used to not give him enough time of the awkward silence to respond. So he and I going on walks, and just he and I, we go on walks. And it might be 10 minutes, it might be 15 minutes in the walk, and then boom, he just opens up. He's got all kinds of feedback, questions, conversations. So that's how I involve him and balance him. And I've been taking him to meetings and those kinds of things since he was 5, 6 years old.
Oh, that's all.
Yeah, kids are sponges. I remember picking him up from 3rd grade, and I said, hey son, I turned the solar on, it's opened up on the pool, might be warm today to swim at the start of the season. He's 3rd grade. He goes, yeah, I got in it last week and I didn't even have to get acclimated. I looked in and he's sitting in a car seat. You're going to be in a car seat until you're 32 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I said, do you even know what acclimated means? And he goes, yeah, basically adjusted. And how did you study that at school? And he's, no, you guys have talked about it in different meetings.
You talked about your son joining on some calls and various different things. Do you have any desires to, or does he have any desires to actually join in on the actual business side of it? Like to actually work in the company with you, or is there any desire or conversation about that?
Yeah. So it's always, I told him early on, because he sees a lot of the difficulties too, right? So it's a lot of that stuff, and it's a great business. we love what we do with cybersecurity, and especially working with schools and mission bases. And then we've been able to give back so much in the community and expose. We're big on exposure, bringing kids from schools into our office, and hey, there's 3 high-paying jobs, 3 or Irvine, do various places we have offices. And so he sees that. But I told him I said, I didn't design this as a generational business. Like, it's a thing. If God wants it to be generational, then it is. There's no pressure at all. I could sell it, and it's not my identity. I'm James States. I'm not Data Path, right? So he's had that clear message. I don't see him particularly working in business. Obviously, we're not in the NFL. So but he's the life skills. Like, he interned this year. And I told him, hey, if you want to enter, you're going to have to create a resume. I'm going to give you the contact of who you need to give the resume to. You're going to have to do an interview. I won't be part of it. And you got to pass. And I'm going to tell the guy, you got to pass. And he's really good. I wasn't worried about it, but I'm like, and if you get it, whatever time they tell him and you commit to, you got to be there. You're there early, you're prepared, you're all that stuff. And he killed it. He absolutely killed it. And we had school district, wasn't even part of our contract. They called us and said, hey, through some mishaps and whatever, we got 8,000 Chromebooks that we got to give out. And 3,000 of them we have to give out on Monday, and it's Friday at 4 p.m. And these all have to be wiped out and redone by hand. It was a complicated issue, and there was no way to mass fix it. And they weren't even really asking us for help. It was just like telling us the tales. Well, and a couple of guys heard about it and said, hey, we're going to show up right now. Let's see what we do. So they asked, they said, hey, can Colin show up? I heard about it. I said, you know what, Colin? I used to do all this stuff too. I said, I'm going to go with you. I said, let's just help the school out. And we knocked out 3,000 Chromebooks over the next 8 hours on a Saturday morning. That kid never complained. We gave him the crappiest job of running, like all the ones that were dead that had to be powered on, and thousands of Chromebooks trying to find the power plugs, plug them all in, all that stuff. The heart of what he had is he's seen the hard work, right? He never complained. And the feedback I got from the team is he kills it. He never complains. He asks how he should be doing it. He's not afraid to be wrong, right? But he's learned those things through exposure. So if he's afraid of asking a question or saying, hey, can I do that right? And being corrected on it. I don't think he would go in the business. I don't know. And I have no pressure of him either way. I just want him to use his unique gifts and abilities. But I do know the lessons he's learning in the business are going to serve him what. I love bringing Christian and Mateo to the office and them being exposed, and they're exposed to a lot of the same conversations, hearing about that. Big fan of Pastor Stephen Furtick in Elevation. I think he's one of a phenomenal pastor, one of the best speakers I've ever heard. I had heard this quote, and I didn't know it was him that said it till years later. I was listening to an old sermon. I'm like, oh, he's the one that said it. Colin and I had just come from a meeting. We were with the mayor, city council, a lot of wealthy people stuff. And we were in the car. We were going up to one of our Airbnbs. So I literally had a toilet in the back of our car. After this meeting, like 2 hours after the meeting, I told Colin, I said, you see a side of doubt other people don't see. He goes, what do you mean? It was 11 at the time. I said, we were just at the fancy meeting, dressed all nice, all these prominent people. We got in our nice car. But what they don't see is the grubby clothes we're on, the toilet in the back of the car now. And we're going to go rental because I don't have anyone that could do this. And I just need to get it done. And what Stephen Furtick said is that I think is such an important lesson for our kids to see the whole picture of us. Is he said, people often compare other people's highlight reels to their behind the scenes.
Yeah.
If I can give Colin the behind the scenes look, I just know whether he stays in the business or ever want to or not, he's going to be prepared regardless of what he goes into. One thing that I do, especially the last few years, is been asked to be on a lot of different boards or come to charity events, those kinds of things. So any of those things that are after hours, like there was one, they're starting a new thing in town that's really cool for young adults, and it's called Digital Nest, and it's a really cool thing that they're doing. And I heard about it and love to know more about that. Word about it. It was like on a Thursday night or something. I said, and they wanted me to come. And I said, yeah, I'll come as long as I can bring this. Because I want him to see giving back. I want him to see opportunities to serve. I want to have him learn what's going on in the community. And I want to spend time with my son. Adam, I've had zero pushback on that ever. He was like, yeah. And I mean, he's completely well composed. But it brings an excitement to the adults in the room. Because, yeah, this is a younger generation that actually cares, and they're learning, they're being exposed to this. So that's my intentionality on that. And it's worked really well.
Looking at raising your kids, you've got 3 kids. How are you already, or how are you looking to raise your kids inside of business and using that thought process and using that networking? How are you leveraging your previous skills and current skills to raise your kids in that environment?
I'm trying to expose my kids as early as possible and as much as possible to problem solving. Define problems, understand what the solutions are that exist to those problems, why they're not good enough, what solutions can we bring to the table. So that problem solving. So my oldest was born like a month before. He was born December, and we signed the documents in December, I think, of 2014. But the closing all that was in 2015. Yeah, he didn't know anything we were doing, right?
Of course. Yeah.
And my second was born 2016, so I was still in the company. They didn't know much. They didn't understand much at that age. But I've always, so now when they're older, I tell them, remind them of that, of the diamond, and they talk about the problem solving aspect of it and finding a way to solve that problem with technology and what it means to market, what it means to sell, what it means to convince people.
Okay.
I try to get them involved in understanding money more. So what money means, what value there is to assets, what a liability is. That's more where I get them involved. I think it's not just for the company, but it's overall in life. I think those are important basic fundamentals of finance, which kids are so unaware of. And another thing is negotiation. So I really believe that negotiating skills are key to anything in life. I'm a big believer, like the Chris Voss Never Split the Difference book. I love that book.
I love that book.
And I think that my kids, and it's crazy, right? And he also talks about it in the book, but everything we do on a day-to-day basis is all negotiating. And I think negotiating with kids is the most advanced type of negotiating possible, right? Because you have to solve it. Like you have to. And so I try when my kids now somehow got into Pokemon cards. And do you remember what Pokemon cards are? Do your kids? Okay, so
they don't use them, and I never used them, but I know what they are. Yeah.
All right, so I mean, I was always like against these I love Lego. Like Lego is creativity. You can build stuff. And so these other types of toys for me is like that's like a waste of time. Like, why would I want to buy a Paw Patrol figure for my kid? Like, but then I spoke with this psychologist a few years ago, and he said that's like core in our imagination skills. These characters, Pokemon or whatever, the creativity that it creates, the imagination that they need in order to play is such a fundamental aspect of their childhood and growing up. And the negotiation between brothers and between friends around those toys is on a whole nother level. Like my kids are sitting, like we're here in DC, right, with family, and my cousin's kids are also here. And my kids are sitting down with their kids and negotiating on which Pokemon cards to trade. Nice. I love it. And I try to teach. All right. So if he's not willing to trade that card with you, there has to be a price he's willing to pay. You'd be willing to pay to get that. What is that price? Maybe it's 5 cards. Find that sweet spot that'll make him make the deal. And it's not like I'm really doing that on purpose, but I identified, holy, this could be amazing. If they can get this sort of in their day to day of like negotiating for stuff, that could be like so much better than what I had growing up. I never thought that way as a kid.
No kidding. Yeah. I remember trading like Pogs. I don't know if you remember Pogs back in the day, right? But I remember trading Pogs and Slammers and all that type of nonsense back in the early 90s and even trading cards, baseball, football, that type of stuff. But I never thought about it in that way, like the negotiation, the imagination, and actually playing those things. Because I don't remember if there was even a playing of Pogs other than when they flip over their ears or whatever. I don't remember, but that you just gave me a whole different view on Pokemon, because I just look at it and I'm like, oh, that weird, silly stuff. Like it's never, I'm the same way. I want something tangible, something right here that I can play with. But that's interesting. Yeah. What more, if you remember anything else, or if there was more that you and that psychologist talked about on that sense that we can draw from to relay in this conversation?
That's a whole conversation on its own. Like the reason we went to this psychologist, my wife and I went to this psychologist just to solve, we had an issue with our middle son and things he was doing, but we want to solve that. And we just these conversations. And at one point I told her about the games and the games that I like. And I'm against these types of games. And those games are like, for me, these worthless stuff that you can't do anything in those character type stuff. And it was really interesting for me to hear that perspective of what you just said. And what I said at the same spot is, wow, that's interesting. That's an interesting perspective because I value imagination and creativity.
Yeah.
If I talk about important traits for kids, it's there's negotiation. But there's another thing that I had from a very early age. And I think I got this from my grandfather, and that's curiosity. Right. So being curious about something is so important because it helps you learn new things and be exposed to new things. And so the curiosity part of it is also interesting. And now also when you talk about these games, there's some curiosity involved in that as well. There are all these really interesting things when you look at game psychology and stuff like that. Yeah. That was a long answer to a short question.
So do you have any desire to involve your kids later on in life beyond just hey, I can make them an employee and pay them $12,000 a year and put it into their IRA or whatever, to actually involve them in the business? I know you've mentioned opening up the horizon so they can choose what they want, but also a lot about business and a lot of work and opening that horizon to them. What are your thoughts on the exposure to business operations to your kids?
I'll absolutely open the door. If they choose to walk through it, amazing. If they don't, amazing. Like, I will open whatever door they ask me to open, and I will be there to cheer them on and support them in walking through whatever they choose to walk through. I'll definitely expose them to things, but then it will ultimately be their choice as to what they want. Look, I think there are schools that can help your kids become entrepreneurs. Look, I think there are programs that can help build entrepreneurship in kids. But you became an entrepreneur not because of the school you went into, but because of who you are as a human and how you're wired. And I think it's my job as a parent to figure out who my kids are and how are they wired, and then put them in a place where their passion and their purpose are aligned to let them achieve whatever level of success they choose to achieve and however they define success, right? Maybe it's the amount of days worked, maybe it's the amount of days off, maybe it's the amount of money made, maybe it's the amount of money donated. I don't have any sort of marriage to whatever they do. My only goal is to find their purpose, their passion, and ultimately let that fuel whatever they decide to do. And the other thing I do is I'm traveling a bunch right now for work. I bring my family to as much of it as I can. So I'm speaking at Bigger Pockets this weekend. My family's coming with me. We're leaving tomorrow. We're going to take the kids to Disney, and we're bringing the in-laws and my parents, and we're doing the whole thing. And they're going to come with me. I had to go to an event earlier this year in California, brought the kids with me. Had to go to Jackson Hole, brought the kids with me. So I try to bring the family along. And the amazing thing about that is they get to see a glimpse into what you really do. And I was in Jackson Hole, and we were going to do a sound check, and my job is to lead the group, and I'm standing on stage with the mic and all that stuff. And we get into the room, and my daughter looks at me and she said, "Dad, the stage is already set up." I'm like, "Yeah, I know, sweetie. What's up?" She's, "I thought you set up stages." I'm like, "Oh, no, I don't set up stages for a living. I don't really know how to work a screwdriver, but like somebody did, and it looks amazing, doesn't it?" And then she wanted to come on stage with me. So I bring her up on stage with me. So trying to put them in a place where they feel like they're a part of the journey, not like they're in like the backseat of my car, not going with me. So I try to keep them in the front, try to do the best I can. That's a concept David taught me, and just try to continue to focus on it so it doesn't slip by the wayside, because it's very easy to.
Yeah, I traveled a lot, like I said, for the military. And then when I left and I said, I need to figure something else out. I was traveling on go bunnies trips. I was going out to visit different properties or do different things. And it was like, I need to figure out how to involve my kids more with this and take them on the trips. How do because like it wasn't something, one time in my military career when I had kids was I able to bring my kids with me. And it was when I only had one, and now I've got three. So it was like, okay, my wife and I both went on a trip to Hawaii at the same time. I was like, well, we got to figure something out. So we just brought them with and figured out who was going to watch them when we got there, type of thing. But as your kids get older and you're doing the traveling, so now I just started homeschool, which is where this thought process went, is I'm doing homeschool so I can bring them around with me. They're coming with me. We're doing our conference for ADPI in a couple weeks. They're coming with me up to FanBundance and GoBundance up in Vermont. I brought them up to the Philadelphia event up there. I'm bringing them all over the place, wherever I can. We have some friends that live out in California. We've got, I think, 7 kids, a lot of kids. And one of the rules in sort of start your own business time year 11. So they have chickens, and one of the kids is like sells the eggs. 2 of the girls teamed up and they make pies and sell the pies. Nice.
It's like a lemonade stand thing in a day where no one's doing lemonade stands anymore. I don't know. In my ideal world, setting up a way where they can do something that they're excited about and see some sort of fruit from their labors. It's always my goal. I don't want to get caught into the bad habit of you're going to do these things because this is what I like to do, or you're going to do these things because this is what I wish I could have done when I was young. What has been our goal up to this point, and I hope to stay accountable to this, is I just want to expose my kids to, I want to provide them the opportunity to experience all of these things so that they know that's an option, and then they can choose whatever option that brings them most joy. So like with entrepreneur stuff, and I'd love to set up a way for them to easily make something and sell it. Or with real estate, what's really nice is I can actually just bring Rory in with me to the office or on showings or things like for providing some sort of for to be able to create something, sell it, and then see that they're reaping some sort of benefit from the work that they did. I mean, oh yeah, I went to Dad on showings and he's just hanging out in houses with people. I don't know quite what that looks like, but I love that idea of making it a family. This is a rite of passage. By the time you're 11 or by the time you're 13, show me your business plan. Yeah. It might be cool. Like selling cookies. Yeah. Yeah, as you were saying that, I was like, man, we live in a very small neighborhood. It's like a little 3/4 mile loop, and that's it. And there's just a handful of houses that are in here, and that's it. It would not work so well to put a lemonade stand outside. They would be bored and get really sunburnt by the time the day's over without selling any lemonade. But I could just picture them on the road outside of the neighborhood, like with little signs and doing all this stuff. And we're working on building. Hopefully, by the time this comes out, it's already built and we have them in place. But our business plan for what are they called? The vending machines. So a little vending machine route for the kids to be able to put together and have this little guy in there stocking Doritos and M&Ms and Monster drinks. So I think it'll be a lot of fun to watch and build that out. To your point, I want to expose them to as much as I can so that they can see what that looks like, but I don't want to necessarily force their hand one way or another. Risk rooms through the experience of you're so pumped to give your kid this experience and you're going to be so pumped, and then you do it and they're like, the kid just could care less or immediately wants to go home. So setting up this like, I'm going to have them be an entrepreneur, and then they just aren't motivated that way, or they're not excited about it, or they don't seem to have that kick of motivation. I'm curious if that is nature or nurture, or nature the appropriate way to react to that when your kid's just not being able to do that. Yeah. So I think that, so initially what I was planning to do is buy a house for each kid and have them help manage it and do all the stuff. And that way, I have good assets and they get to learn, the differences between assets and liabilities and understand what it's like having a renter and dealing with all of that. But the more I talk to the kids, the more, especially the older one, he seemed almost detached from the idea. Like it was just, okay, sure. Like he was ready to invest $100 in it, but what does that mean to me? I don't really know what it means to own a house. So the more we talked, that's when I started going down the route of the vending machines. It got them on board with, okay, we get to go buy a bunch of snacks? That sounds awesome. Luring them in with the enjoyment of eating a bag of Doritos on the way to stock the shelves. But yeah, I don't really know what it's actually going to look like when they're doing it, because I'm making it a school project this year for my oldest. He's going to be helping out with it, of course, but I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how I'm going to approach it necessarily, because again, I want it to be something that they want to do. You know, if they start doing the vending machines, they're like, this is terrible. Obviously, it's going to have to be something that I'm going to want to I'm going to have to continue doing if they don't want to do it at all. So I don't really know, but we'll see what kind of bug they get attracted to. But I think that that's the beauty about entrepreneurship is you can go down whatever route makes you happy, right? If you like digging dirt, you can make a business out of that, right? They have plenty of businesses about digging dirt, right? Just depends on how deep you want to go and how wide you want to go. Let's just find their interest and try to build it out from there.
My intent is not to have a big family business in the traditional sense that you see. And it's to make sure that I want to enable them. If they want to learn the business, then there's an opportunity for us to partner, or I can help teach them. We do spend a good bit of time talking about what I do. And I'm sure you do this with your kids. Hey, I know we're on the way to the soccer game, but we got to drive this apartment complex. And what do you guys think about the colors? You guys think these colors work? And we always joke, hey, we bought an apartment complex today. You kids got another doorknob. They're like, hey, where's the doorknob? Let's go find the doorknob. And so I like to spend time talking with them about what I do. And I'll just share what fellow Go Bro, The First to a Million. I love this book by Dan Sheeks. It's a must read. I think it's written for teenagers, and really what it lays out, it doesn't give you the answer, but it lays out that there's this alternative path that you can go down. It doesn't say you need to go to college and you need to get in debt and you need to do this. You can do what we do. And so we spend time talking about, and all the kids have read the book. My 12-year-old hasn't read it yet. It's next up on his reading list. And we'll talk chapter by chapter, and just to know that there's other ways to go about life versus what society tells you. And so I'm just trying to empower them and maintain that father-son relationship. And if they decide they want to get in the business, great. Let's partner up on something and figure it out. But I don't really want you to work for me.
Yeah. And I would venture to guess, I don't even really have to guess, laid it out, is part of that is because of that, that feeling you got when you were 30, 35 years old. Was I really don't want to have my kids have this feeling at 30 or 35.
Yeah.
That's good.
I was just going to say, it was, not going to lie, it was tough growing up in a family of first founders, right? Like they're grinders, man. My mom and dad were serious grinders, and I ground so hard the last 10 years. And both my brother, he had an alcohol problem. I had an alcohol problem that I dealt with in 2019. To your listeners, don't grind so hard, and don't lose the focus and feel like you have to grind so hard that you end up doing something bad. My marriage was challenged, and my kids were getting older. I didn't want them to see dad as a drunk. But that trauma of growing up and this pressure and in the times gave me an alcohol problem. I took care of that and got my side of the street clean in 2019. And just that was important for me to do that. And I don't want your listeners to make the same mistake I made. It was tough.
Talk to me about what your plans are, or what thoughts you've been giving to having any inclusion of your daughters into the business. Or obviously at 1 and 3, probably not a ton of my dog is apparently having a conversation with my son. What? 1 second. All right. Yes. What was I saying?
Including the daughters in the future in the business.
I know they're like 1 and 3 right now, right? But it doesn't sound like necessarily you were included a ton in the business that your dad was doing, but you at least were exposed to it to learn. What have you taken, and what kind of thoughts are you having now as far as what you experienced versus what you would like your daughters to experience?
Yeah, this is a great question. Yeah, I think I'm definitely in the camp of exposing them to the business, showing them what I do, but not pushing them into it, really. I want them to understand money. I want them to understand what a business, like what it takes. They got to understand there's a lot. Growing a team is difficult. Like dealing with people is difficult, but I want to show them that like how fun it could be as well, and how like rewarding financially, but also spiritually, and just from a time management space, like being able to have more than 2 weeks of vacation. So expose them to that I think is important. Yeah. And I think about it a lot of times too. My wife is attorney. I would say she's very driven, and like she gets checklists, she knocks it out. I'm like, oh man, it's one of my daughters. I always joke, like my wife would be like amazing if I could figure out how to implement her in mine, because she's exactly like, I'm like the opposite. I'm like checklist, like A, and then I'm in like D, or I'm all over the place. I'm like, oh man, one of my daughters has that. Maybe I'll hire her as my in the future or something. One of the things I did, I took my oldest, choose to bring Olivia to, I just need to do something with your kids.
Yeah.
Like you just got to get out of the house. Yeah. So we drove to one of our apartment buildings that just had a turnover, and there was a tenant moving in the next day. So we went to the apartment and did a quality control look, and he loved it. He was like looking around. Like I told her, hey, we got to make sure it's clean. We got to make sure the next person is going to love it here. Like, you being trash. And I told her, it was the first time I told her, hey, this is one of daddy's investments. And hearing a 3-year-old say the word investment is pretty epic. And she also, right before we left, she definitely tried the toilet. So that was funny too.
My son's best friend got a brand new Tesla. I looked at him, I go, here's the deal, Pierce. Wait, you're in the car. You know what you're going to do? You're going to go to work.
Yeah.
He works in the restaurant around the corner and he washes dishes.
Nice.
Like $18 an hour. And I said, and so did my daughter. My daughter worked as a barista in a cafe. She babysat. She had 2 or 3 jobs. So does he. I said, you work, you're going to earn money. Whatever you save, mom and I will match. You pay your own gas, I'll pay the insurance. But damn sure I'm not giving you anything. I'm not giving you anything. I said, when I was your age of 15, I taught Taekwondo twice a week. I worked in this clothing department store in the mall on commission. I learned how to sell. A bagel store on Sunday mornings. Okay. I bought my first car, my own insurance. It was a 1979 Cutlass Supreme that I bought from my aunt for $500. It was silver. I tinted out the windows, put rims and tires on it. Of course, it was the same car, right? And I paid the insurance and I worked and I did my thing. So I'm going to teach my kids the same thing. I will give you opportunities. I'm not handing you anything. You will have opportunities around you. It's up to you to take advantage of the opportunities. You know, what did my dad do? Yeah, he didn't have money to help me open up a business. He went and he bartered and he gave me an opportunity. I felt compelled for the damn sure not to let my old man down after what he did to help me to barter that martial arts school. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, sure. That was a driving force for me.